in seeing today?
Well, this year in particular, to me, it's a new era of SEC cross country because last year at this time, right around, the SEC had announced that roster limits were going to become a thing. And having looked at the Arkansas rosters, there are only 9 athletes that are at least on the roster that are recorded because the SEC is limited to 10 athletes on their team. So because of the House and NCAA settlement, things are going to look a little different, I think, in the years to come at the NCAA level for, not only the SEC but for all Power Four and even like the Group of Five conferences. This will be an interesting year, especially when you only have 9 guys on a roster. I mean, that's 2 for backups for if one of your 7 drops off. I mean, that's a little concerning to me.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about the collegiate campaign that we're going to be watching, too, is just a lot of these teams getting kind of reinvented very quickly and certainly an influx of a lot of international talent as it comes through. As we get the sweep of the college teams here in Fayetteville, we'll get the first of our 2 collegiate races underway in the, well, I guess they're titled different here in the case of the men's race, the McDonnell Memorial, and it's up to 8K now, Keenan, so a little bit longer track for these guys to run. They'll see 10,000 meters before the end of the collegiate season, but what do you see as the thing, what you would expect to see this early in the season for these particular divisions of races? It's again a chance for some of these colleges to start to kind of figure out their rosters as they get closer to really wanting to make those points matter.
Well, and we can easily just talk about Arkansas this entire time, especially since this is their home meet. But I do want to consider the fact that there are a lot of Division II junior college level teams that are ranked nationally, and this is a points opportunity for number 9 in the recent poll for Division II schools, Missouri Southern, number 28. Those teams are going to be battling back and forth with one another, along with the other D2 schools that are in this field. But also, I'm intrigued by a junior college battle between Iowa Central and Crowder Community College here in Missouri. Is race about to get underway here in this men's 8K.
Guns fired in Fayetteville, Arkansas, as the 2025 Chili Pepper Cross Country Festival is out and away in the men's collegiate McDonnell Memorial at 8 kilometers.
So I mentioned some of those teams already, at least at the smaller school level. Let's talk about Arkansas, because this is a completely brand new team that they're bringing this year. They lost, 3 important key pieces to last year's team that finished 3rd at the NCAA. So, ranked number 19th in the country this year, looking to see if they can make it 4 consecutive Chili Pepper titles. But, without the likes of Patrick Kiprop, Yassine Abdallah, Karani Yago, who won this race last year, that's 3 big holes that you're trying to fill for this Arkansas team. And you do bring back Ben Shearer, you bring back Timothy Chessedin and Brian Masai. Ben Shearer had a solid race at NCAA's, 55th at Cross Nationals as an individual, but guys like Chessedin and Brian Masai, who finished 136th and 190th at Nationals, that needs some work done. That being said, in this, as you mentioned, bring a lot of international talent into this NCAA landscape. They do bring in 2 freshmen from Kenya, and James Sankey and Owen Lagarodi, who have some pretty solid credentials, and we can get an idea of what those athletes provide here early on. And now we see from Oral Roberts early on, that's the other thing too. From these small schools, you expect talent from internationals to be going to these smaller schools because they just want to get the education. I think that's the first and foremost part.
Yeah, Abraham Chellingam of Oral Roberts, a junior on their squad, is the early leader in this race. As we look high above at this group of collegiate men out on the course at 8,000 meters. He's got a little bit of a gap on that group here in the early going.
See athletes from Texas, Stephen F. Austin, Iowa Central is going to have their presence too. I mean, Iowa Central, even though it's a junior college school, that's one of the more solid programs in that part of the country, in that kind of that south central region. And I'm curious to see, they finished second last year at their junior college championships, which for the very first time on Runner Space this year, we're going to be able to broadcast the junior college championships. So I hope a lot of people tune into that, and not only pins at the NCAA Division I, Division II, Division III levels, but also what the junior college level has to offer, because there's a lot of really good talent at that level too.
Well, Chessedin is getting a little bit of company here in the early going, but he is still the leader. He had just an amazing season last year for Oral Roberts, as he won Summit League titles indoors in the mile, the 3K, and the 5K, and then went outdoors in cross country as well. School records over the 6,000 and 8,000 meter distance. Just a confident young runner out of Uganda, as he previously ran at Oklahoma City. So he's now in the front here, as we've gotten a little bit of separation already, maybe a group of about 6 men behind the 2 up in front here, just 3.5 minutes in, as they work their way from the south and now move to the north here in the first part of this 8-kilometer race.
And get a first chance to see some of the Arkansas athletes for the very first time sitting in that third and fourth, and we'll get a better idea who those athletes are once they make their way through the first mile. But again, kind of like what we saw in that, that girls' high school race, 5:19 for that first mile. Well, Paul, if these guys run 5:19, we have some questions that need to be answered, but relatively they are moving as quick as that girls' high school race is.
As Chessedin took a little look over his shoulder here, it is beginning to get a little bit more crowded here at the front as they're closing in on that first mile here with Chessedin. That's Stephen F. Austin behind him, and that's Nathan Capel. And then the 2 from Arkansas, Chessedin and Masai.
So both in their first year last year after transferring from Akron, they take over the lead for the very first time here. And again, Paul, they probably remember what happened in Madison, Wisconsin, and don't want to have an outcome like that happen again. I mean, that was for them, had they not finished that low in the individual race, could have Arkansas challenged BYU for the team title. Now, granted, that was a very, very good BYU team, and Iowa State also had a really good team, which we can talk about Iowa State here in just a couple minutes. But, this is going to be this is a new look for Arkansas, especially with those roster limits this year. They have to be really mindful. Coach Bucknam has, be mindful about, how I race these guys, how hard I race these guys because of those roster limitations. So you have to be careful about, preventing injury and making sure everyone's healthy.
Yeah, certainly have reduced the margin for error. The depth that many of these top flight programs have enjoyed has changed, and the whole complexion of collegiate cross country, indoor and outdoor track and field, it's really going to be something we're just going to have to monitor and witness in real time, because things are changing so dynamically based on so many of the changes that we're seeing in the collegiate sports landscape. It is not unusual, however, to see Arkansas leading their own race on their own course at the Chili Pepper Cross Country Festival. They are now 1 and 2, with Chessedin in tow here in third, as they're working on to a part of the course we haven't seen so far today. They're going further north than we saw the high schoolers go, and so they're off and into this area where the choice is either run on the gravel or run on the side, and they've chosen both sides of the road at this point, as there's a little bit of separation here between the 2 Arkansas runners.
Yeah, I'm curious if that was, well, I don't know if it was planned by any means. Heck, they might get tired of running next to each other since they do it every day at practice. But, it's a team strategy thing. They're trying to, confuse the Oral Roberts athlete, which I know sounds a little silly that they might do that, but hey, like it might, confuse. It's like, oh, should I go behind this athlete on this side? Should I stay on this side with this athlete? Because I don't know what, particularly moves that these athletes are going to make. And, you have your classic SEC team battle so far here with Arkansas and Texas, as I say that sarcastically, with Texas being in its second year in the SEC.
Chessedin is now the leader here. He's wearing bib number 31. And then Masai next to him wearing bib 33. Those two in front. Chellingam in second. Won't get the next split here in this men's race till they're well past 5,000 meters. In fact, I think it's 5,500 when we get that second split. So you can see Arkansas's got a runner back there in third as well, so comfortably in a position where they're dominating the team race, which is not too unsurprising given the makeup of the collegiate squads here. Arkansas bringing a lot of firepower, and why not? It is their home course. You want to save, those successful runs when you can do it in front of the home crowd.
Yeah, and again, more than just an individual race. Karama Yego won this last year for Arkansas, but also this is a team battle. I mean, this is a chance for Arkansas to win a fourth consecutive Chile Pepper title. Now, you could argue, the competition may not be, what the SEC championships has to offer. I mean, Alabama's got a really good squad this year, so it'll be, really fun to watch those teams battle back and forth. But, they do take pride in this meet. I mean, this is their season opener, and I'm sure Coach Bucknam tells them, like, hey, let's go out there and put a solid effort into this one. And actually, that third guy back there for Arkansas, I believe is the freshman James Sankey. He was just ahead of Ben Shearer by a couple of tenths, so that's our first chance really to get to see the Kenyan freshman.
It's like a really solid group behind him here as he's actually gotten himself into fourth, kind of in a breakaway. I'm not sure if he's going to have, we've got plenty of time on this course left, Keenan, to kind of reel in and regain contact with those leaders right now, because he's going to have to do it kind of alone, whereas the guys behind them in that large group maybe can work in concert with each other to try to close the gap here. Nice wooded, shaded section of the course. Good fan support all along this course at the University of Arkansas. And again, more racing to come in the high school and youth divisions following the 4 collegiate races. It's the first of 4 that we'll see. The Harder's Habanero Collegiate Women's 5 kilometer will follow, and then we've got 2 additional collegiate men's and women's races known as the Prairie Fire Pepper races.
Say that 3 times.
I will not.
You're looking at me like I should say it 3 times.
I know. Put me on the spot.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you
Prairie Fire Pepper, Prairie Fire Pepper, Prairie Fire Pepper.
You said you weren't going to do it.
This is true. I said that earlier. I thought it was a bit of a tongue twister, but I figured it out.
Look, we got some distance
We
now.
do have some distance as Chessedin has taken a little bit of control here in this race. The stride has elongated, and he's pushed his way out to about a 10, 15 meter lead here, about 10 and a half minutes in as they go by the start line. You see the collegiate women in their final minutes of preparation. That race to follow here at 10 minutes after the hour, coming up here shortly. And actually check that. It is at the top of the hour, so about 25 minutes away. And after that surge by Chessedin, he kind of settles just a little bit, and Masai and Chellingam are there in a battle for second and third.
Last year finished third in this race, so again, just thinking about, again, improvements. I know 2 spots is not a huge jump by any means, but, third feels a lot different than first. It's a better feeling, of course, when you win a race, as cliche as that sounds, but, this guy actually has a solid credential. Before he came to Arkansas, he is an All-American in cross country, so last year was kind of an off year. He was 36th at the 2023 NCAA Championships in Charlottesville when he was running for Akron. And he was also, this last track season, running in an Arkansas uniform, an outdoor finalist in the 10,000. So there's that. He has that experience, and it's not like he hasn't been an All-American before. He's been in those situations. It's just, some days you don't necessarily put things together, and that day in Madison, Wisconsin was probably one he wants to forget, and probably wants a better outcome when he hopes to be on the starting line in Columbia, Missouri here in November.
And a look from the drone high above the course here in Fayetteville. You can see that lead that has emerged for Chessedin of Arkansas against his teammate Brian Masai and Oral Roberts Abraham Chellingham, as they are 12 and a half minutes in, waiting for that next trip across the timing mat to reset the field and the team scoring here. They'll do that at 5,500 meters. But these last couple of kilometers, a solo effort by Chessedin now taking control of this race.
And, with that, experience as an athlete, 3 years now in the NCAA. This is his second year racing on this course. He, probably knows it better than everybody else, including his teammate Brian Masai. And then, a guy like James Sankey, who we can kind of see well back there in that fourth position, getting a feel of this course. This is somewhere that Arkansas runs a lot. So if anybody knows this course better than anybody, it's the Arkansas athletes, and it's showing here, Paul.
Now, one of the quieter parts of the course, there's a lot of fan engagement here each and every year at Chili Pepper, but there are a couple of stretches where they kind of get out and away from the crowds. You can see the rest of the fields kind of emerging there from that little rise, and our leader makes another turn, and in doing so makes a turn on the swivel of his neck as well to kind of gauge where he is in relation to the rest of the field. His teammate Masai now comfortably in second, maybe a couple of strides ahead now of Chellingham in that battle for second and third.
And a totally different, race course. And there you can see just kind of the difference between Masai and Chellingham there in that second and third position. Of course, you got Chessedin well out front. But, rather instead of, making that cut inward like we've seen in those high school races, they continue to be outward. So, it just shows you on a course like this, like just the different layers of the course. I think that's another thing, too, that makes it unique is there are so many different ways you can run this race. And now I have no idea if the NCAA could host a championship-style meet here. I know for a fact that, they have like the South Central regionals here this year, I believe. So, yeah, you can host it at least for a regional setting, but what are the thoughts of having it here for an NCAA championship? I have, again, don't know the parking situation, but this is a really nice course, and it's spectator friendly.
Yeah, I think they'll gauge. You talked about earlier in the broadcast of the efforts around really bringing crowds to this year's NCAA championship, and certainly that is I think has to be part of the discussion for each and every one of these collegiate championships now, is how do we place it in a place where it's not only spectator friendly, but it will draw kind of crowds that these sports kind of need. They're looking for, at the end of the day, they're all looking for ways to generate revenue, and making these championship events kind of a celebration of the sport, and get 10, 15,000 to show. It just, to your point, whether some of these courses, even though they're really set up for great racing, can provide that sort of spectator-friendly atmosphere as well. I do love the fact that it just seems like the crowds are really engaged here in this one. I don't see as much, kind of the classic maneuvering. It looks like everyone's kind of in their position and staying in their position, rather than the race within the race, which is, crowds going from one end of the course to the other for a couple of different vantage points. But right now you can see the teams now populating, and as we wait for their top 5 runners to come across the line. Texas, actually the first squad officially to have 5 across the line. Chessedin with the lead now, that is up to about 10 seconds over his teammate Brian Masai. Chellingham is in third. And then Sankey of Arkansas, Ben Shearer of Arkansas. So Arkansas with 4 in the top 5, even though it looks like Texas had originally had 5 across the line first. But Arkansas, by virtue of those low sticks in the top 10, now with the lead. That score will change dynamically here as they work their way through now the last 2 kilometers of this race.
So I know it's early in the season, and teams can be totally different by the time we get to the national championships. But this is a really solid 4 that Arkansas has. I mean, when you got guys that are the spread, it looks like it's about 42 seconds or so. That's good to have that, especially I mean, if you add a 5th guy, which at this point I'm just looking through the results right now. I'm not seeing their 5th man. Their 5th man looks like Jack Williams right now, back in 35th. So he's a little bit ways back. But this is also, I think Owen Lagaroti's not even in the lineup today. I haven't seen his name pop up throughout this race. So, that's the 5th guy that they're probably going to rely on this year. And, again, it is an early season. He is a freshman. Probably doesn't have necessarily a ton of racing experience, especially here in the United States. So Coach Putnam is kind of just getting things going here in the season, because I remember last year they didn't debut Patrick Kiprop or Yassine Abdallah until Nuttycombe last year, which is where they really showed that they were a force to be reckoned with at the national scene.
Well, 18 minutes have elapsed on the race clock here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. This is the McDonnell Memorial Collegiate Men's 8 kilometers 2025 Chili Pepper Cross Country Festival, and Arkansas in a solid control, both of the team race but also the race at hand. Timothy Chessedin is the leader here. Brian Basai now all alone there in second, as he is broken free from Abraham Chellingam off Oral Roberts, as it's kind of equidistance, I think, between first, second, third, and now back into 4th. I think that remains James Sankey, who is 4th for the Razorbacks. And again, along one of these lonely stretches of the race, away from that festival-like atmosphere, but they will be closing their way here shortly back into the heart of the race course and on to the finish chute for the victory.
Through 5.5 kilometers, 15:22, they're moving, Paul. I mean, they're running right around that 14:10, 14:15 pace for that 5K. I mean, this is not a slow race by any means. And again, we've reiterated the fact that this is a fast course. I mean, I'm looking at the paces right here, 4:29 per mile for these races, Paul. I mean, that's moving, especially early on in this season. I mean, that's fast.
And I think the realization we've had throughout these last few years is just, no longer the unexpected to see performances as fast as we're seeing here in what, still amounts to the very early stages, even though there's only like 6 weeks, technically left or so in the collegiate season. This is still, fairly early on as these teams start to, and this is kind of the stretch where we're seeing, some regional events, a lot of schools hosting, like Chili Pepper. Got the Bill Dellinger Invitational coming up at the University of Oregon next week, and not necessarily going to be bringing all their firepower to those events, but wanting to perform well in front of their home fans. And then it's like, okay, now how do we figure out the right formula and the right cadence to get these folks ready for when it matters in November? And
we've already, I guess in some way, I've already kind of had like a national meet in some way. We had the Gans Creek Classic last week. It was last week over in Columbia, Missouri. And, to me right now, Iowa State is the team to beat. I mean, 47 points in a field with a lot of nationally ranked teams. Mind you, this was, of course, without, Arkansas. I believe that was also BYU was in that race. So they handled the defending champions with ease. So at this point, I don't know another team right now, and I know it's super early on in this season, but Iowa State is really, really good, Paul.
Well, and it's, again, down to managing your athletes, because the depth is getting tighter in these collegiate programs, and not wanting to overrun and risk a catastrophic injury that could cost you, where the luxury maybe of the depth in some of these programs that you've had in the past due to the new roster limits that are here in the reimagined collegiate sports landscape in 2025, going into the 2026 season. But Timothy Chessedin is continuing to lead this race, seems to be kind of enjoying this solo run effort, eerily similar to the two high school girls races we saw earlier in the day. He has kind of taken control of this one and has really never relinquished much of that lead back. At 5.5 kilometers, he was again a little over 10 seconds ahead of his teammate Brian Masai, and I think that lead has extended almost probably double now as he comes into the closing stretches of this 8 kilometers.
I get a sense of new type of confidence here, especially after, as I said, you lose 3 seniors. You're put in that position now is to be that team captain and the team leader, and he did the part today, Paul.
But he finished third in this race a year ago, but no traffic ahead of him on this day, and it was a traffic-free run most part as he finally gets a chance to celebrate, and why not the 2025 Chili Pepper champion.
Back-to-back individual champs for the Razorbacks. They can celebrate Woo Pig all day long, and at this point it's also looking like they might take another team title, as well as Brian Masai proves upon last year's 6th place finish with a runner-up finish.
Yeah, 17 seconds back of his teammate, finishing in second. Looks like Oral Roberts will hold on for third. Chillingham getting a bit of a battle here at the end from Sankey of Arkansas, but he will come to the line and take third overall, so he finishes out the podium. Ben Shearer makes it 4 Arkansas Razorbacks in the top 5. And then Northwest Missouri's Aziz Mohammed coming in after running a good 8 kilometers.
Nice to see some Division II talent, making their way up. That's the other thing too, is because of the roster limits especially at the D1 level, you may see some guys make their way down to the Division II, Division III.
Oh, there's no question these lower division schools are going to benefit with talent. And it will be interesting, we were talking about it with those roster limits of, whether there will be sort of strategic alliances built, where programs up and down the division sort of are working in tandem, because, in what has become sort of like, where does the depth of Arkansas go, and how can it be still in a position where if they eventually need that depth, they could draw upon it, not in the current season that they're in, but I think those kind of strategic alliances will be, part of it will be a fun thing to talk about at the coaches' convention in December. Is I think people will finally now be kind of in the midst of sort of seeing what's happening in real time, and then being able to have conversations in the hallways in San Antonio at the convention about, where do we go from here?
They won't be comfortable conversations, I'll tell you that, because, for, programs like Arkansas, who has, done well not only in the Southeastern Conference, but also has thrived on the national stage. And I think that's their last athlete that just crossed the line, Jack Williams. But, this is one of the more successful programs in for all sports in the SEC. I mean, you look at the amount of conference titles that they've won, national titles they've won. I had a chance to talk with Coach Harder before he retired, and I did a Zoom with him, and just looking inside his office, I mean, heck, he had one of the trophies as a door stopper for him in his office, because that's how many trophies he has, Paul. That's how much success that Arkansas has had over these years. And, this is one of those programs that you hate to see, that the fact that they're limiting the roster sizes. I mean, of course, you got football and basketball as the big juggernauts, but hey, Arkansas cross country has their coach.
Yeah.
Their football team just let go of their coach. So I don't know if I'm not throwing any, shade at the football program, but hey, look where the success is at in your university.
Yeah. It's just the economics that we're dealing with. I do suspect that there will be at some point a thoughtful discussion about, kind of the Olympic sports and how they carve out a different paradigm to make sure that these programs are still vibrant and viable. And quite honestly, it may require some rethinking and sort of a rekindling of sort of the regional nature of a lot of these events. I mean, Chili Pepper is a great example of this. I mean, this is a great event, but it is not drawing it's not drawing schools from the Pacific Northwest to race here. It's a very successful event. Obviously, a big fundraiser for local high school cross country programs. But it's one thing to have and we talk about it in the context of being based in Eugene, Oregon, with the University of Oregon in our backyard. But they're playing football games in Pennsylvania, and they're going back to Rutgers in a couple weeks, and the football program is doing that. Does the softball team need to be going and playing four game series at Rutgers versus maybe having a really great West Coast softball division and revisit the kind of the way that the model is built there? Well, we're not going to solve the collegiate sports landscape on this October Saturday, but we are going to still enjoy some more racing here at the 2025 Chili Pepper Cross Country Festival as the runners conclude their 8-kilometer dash through the University of Arkansas cross country course, the McDonnell Memorial Men's Collegiate 8K wrapping up here. The women will be out on the course here for the Harder's Habanero 5K in honor of Lance Harder, and we will, the top of the hour, scheduled to go off right at the top of the next hour, wherever you are, about noon local time, scheduled to start here 11 a.m. in Arkansas.
You and I are in Arkansas. We have no idea where everybody else is at.
After being 16 hours misaligned with my home in September, based in Tokyo, I'm just glad I know what time zone I'm in.
Trust me, I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day to tune in and do work, because you know why, Paul? I love this sport.
I know, and we all do, and that's why we also enjoy covering this event as well, and a great combination too. I love the fact that we're being able to talk some of the great great storylines in high school cross country, as well as teeing up some of the collegiate action, as well as they have both the high school and collegiate divisions at Chili Pepper each and every year.
I do want to point out Texas had a solid day, and I think that in part, for the last couple of years, we everyone talking about Coach Flo and the sprint scene, but Greg Metcalf has done a great job since joining that program. He had its success at the University of Washington with Amy Eloise Neal and Bailey Myers, but he's done a really good job with this Texas program, and trying to get them into the national scene. I believe both teams, made it to nationals last year out of this. This is not an easy region. This is a tough region, and especially, with teams like, Tulane. Tulane's got a really good team that made nationals, I believe, last year as well on the men's side. And then, the women's side, Tulane's also got a solid squad. Arkansas, Texas, LSU. There's a lot of talent that, that kind of gets overlooked, I believe, in this region.
Final few runners getting to the line to conclude this McDonnell Memorial men's 8 kilometers.
And then Northwest Missouri, one of the top D2 programs, had a really good day. This point, 103 points. You're finishing second to 2 SEC schools. That's got to feel good. That's got to feel like, all right, we're not necessarily, we're not close to these SEC schools, but, we're putting up a good fight.
Yeah, they finished, looks like they got places 6, 8, 20, 34, and 35 for their top 5. That gives them that 103 points. So good compact spread between their first and fifth place runners. Stephen F. Austin finishing in 4th overall in the team standings, just ahead of Oral Roberts, who did have their top runner finishing in 3rd, but their number 5 runner back in 106th position. That cost them some places, and they were well back of Stephen F. Austin. 5th place was 241 points. Abilene Christian at 6th, East Central of Oklahoma in 7th. Iowa Central Community College, one of the top programs in the country, finishing in 8th overall in this collegiate men's race. UT Arlington and Nebraska Kearney rounding out the top 10.
A lot of red, a lot of orange in that top 11, Paul. Both Arkansas and Texas had 4 athletes finish in that top 11, and then you sprinkle in a little Northwest Missouri too, which again, give credit to them. You put 2 of your low sticks into that top 10 against some of the the best guys at the NCAA Division I level. Again, a lot to be happy and a lot to be proud about that one.
case of Arkansas.